life and work experience in many cases is worth as much or more than college.
Wow, I can't believe you said that.
For some fields, I believe it's true. And I think you'll
agree.
see that more and more today if you take a look at, what kids are doing with their lives.
Welcome to the Business of Beauty podcast, where we talk money with people who work in beauty-based industries, usually. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different because it is Mother's Day weekend. So I'm doing a special episode with a very special guest, my mother, Colleen Gantz. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everyone.
So
happy to be here.
Good. Today we're going to talk about everything motherhood and also what it was like to raise a daughter who decided to pursue a career in a looks-based, beauty-based industry.
Okay.
Sounds
good.
Let's go all the way back to May 1997, your first ever Mother's Day.
Yes. Thanks for that.
Thank you for that. And what was it like just being a mother for the first time on Mother's Day?
I loved being a mom, and you were adorable, and you still are. I loved everything about it, from the moment from being pregnant with you to selecting your name. I thought long and hard about that. Your dad and I did. And it just really fulfilled my life as a working mom too. That was, challenging, but once you figure that out, everything was great. I loved it. I love being a mom.
Amazing. I get asked all the time about how I got my name. So why don't you take it away and tell the story of how you came up with the name India?
Yeah. When I was a kid in junior high or so, my cousins spent a summer at our house in San Diego. And we spent our days swimming in the pool, and then we'd come in the house and watch Gone with the Wind, of all things. It was streaming was a new thing. It was called like Channel 100, I think. And so we could dial up Gone with the Wind and just watch it over and over again. And we got to know the characters and the storyline. And I always remembered the name India. India Wilkes was Ashley Wilkes' sister. And it was such a pretty name. And then India Kate, was named after one of my friends, Kate. So, and then we call you Indy for short, and it just seemed to really suit you. We figured that you would be dark-haired and very exotic looking, between your dad and I both being dark-haired, and you're not, but you still are exotic looking with light hair.
Thank you.
I think the name suits you really well, and your personality.
I think so too. And I am so grateful to have a unique name, because in so many castings that I go to, I don't even have to write down my last name, although I'm proud of my last name, of course.
Yes.
But I can just write down India, and I know that there's likely not going to be anybody else. I've only ever met one other India, and it was a 3-year-old. It's actually becoming a more popular name nowadays.
Yes, I've heard it a few times.
Back to the very early days.
Yeah.
You're holding me, and I'm a fresh baby, barely showing any personality. Did you have any first thoughts of what I might be when I grew up?
Well, all we ever wanted for our kids, especially my thoughts, are healthy, happy, and kind.
Aw.
Yeah. And so if you think about it, no matter what you do, you just want your kids to be healthy, happy, and kind to others. And so honestly, I didn't give it a ton of thought. I didn't think beauty. It's funny because when you were a baby, it was really hard to get like a good picture of you. You were a beautiful baby, but it was hard to get a great picture of you sometimes. You had unique looks as a baby, just like you do now. And I guess I didn't think that would be the direction. I didn't know, though.
Okay.
I know that doesn't sound very good.
No, that's great.
I'll show you the baby pictures.
Yeah.
And then, but no, then you became athletic. And so I wondered, if you would follow your athletics maybe into college. You were very accomplished as a high schooler. And so I thought, I figured you would go to college. That was my assumption. And that you would find a career and maybe do some of the things that I did. I think I thought that initially, not knowing, but then once we had 4 kids and saw that each one of you was so different, one of the mottos I had was that, your kids aren't necessarily going to do what you did or even what you had planned for them or what you thought they might do or what the other siblings are doing. They're all different and have their own path, but as long as they're healthy, happy, and kind.
Well, that's a great perspective to have, because I think you're exactly right. I think a lot of people sometimes even have children so that they can almost redo what they potentially didn't get done in their lifetime.
Right.
So what would you say to somebody who is a little bit more strict with what their children are going to do, put them into this specific activity, even though they say they don't like it? What's your advice for parents kind of going through that right now?
Well, I was thinking about this actually. I know I felt some criticism from some friends and from other people about, letting you select your own path with direction from your parents and good values. And if you set up your values at home with your kids and some structures, you feel pretty good that they're going to be making good decisions. And so people would say, wow, why do you let your daughter go on these modeling excursions by herself? Or why did you let your other daughter hike the Appalachian Trail by herself? Or I had questions like that. Even, why do you let them watch Jurassic Park when they're little kids? But our pediatrician told me early on that mothers know their kids best, and or fathers, parents know their kids best, and can help direct them in the right ways, and they know what's best for their own kids and what they can handle.
Yeah. Let's fast forward to now, like middle school age. We talked about the baby stage, but the kind of middle school growing up stage, I assume that because of my awkwardness and because it took me a while to grow into my face, if you will, you probably didn't assume even then that I would pursue modeling.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So
it's not that you were unattractive. It's just you went through some awkward stages at that age.
Yeah.
But you were happy mostly, and you were doing the things you love, but there were some challenges along the way.
Yeah. So other than just the looks wise, in middle school, I remember one gal telling me that I was pretty and that maybe I should try modeling. And that came as a complete shock to me, because the rest of the input from my fellow classmates was not so kind, I would say. I wasn't bullied. I just wasn't in the cool crowd. And I know there are even some stories that I don't remember that you remember about kids saying not very kind things. And that happens to a lot of kids growing up. So
right.
I'm not saying this for sympathy. I actually had a very great school experience, but do you want to share one experience of when maybe I was not treated so well, so that another parent who's going through that can relate?
Yeah. Well, as far as looks, just to finish that off, I mean, we always knew that you were going to be gorgeous. And Sweet. You could see it in your face. It's just, you had to, like you said, grow into your own looks. And you were very athletic. You really wanted to, I'd say you're a Renaissance girl, because you wanted to try all kinds of different things. You were in not a pageant, what was that? You were our West Seattle High U princess. You wanted to ride on a float. That was something you wanted to do. At the same time, you were a very accomplished athlete. And your softball team was going to the World Series, like the whole Little League World Series. It was a big deal. And we were all behind you and having a great time, and you were having a great time. While at school, I was getting reports from you, I think, or hearing from people that, for example, one kid said, well, are you a nerd like all of your other softball friends or something? And I thought, what? I mean, do you even know this girl is going to the World Series and you're calling her a nerd? I don't understand this. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, but you were getting some teasing, and you wanted to leave school at one point and go to a different school.
Yeah, it's like I was leading a double life.
Yeah.
Having this life that I loved and all my friends and,
right.
Amazing memories. And then, oh yeah, I have to still go to school and deal with these weirdos.
Exactly.
Not weirdos. I'm not calling them weirdos, but just little punks sometimes in middle school.
Right. Which is very typical for that age.
Exactly. And I actually just had a conference recently where another parent was telling me her kid was the only one in her friend group who didn't get invited to this party. And she was very sad about that. And I told her I didn't go to a single party growing up.
Right.
So what's your advice for parents who come home and say, this kid said this to me, or I didn't get invited and everybody else did, or this kid's picking on me?
Well, there was a day that I remember so vividly. We were downstairs in your bedroom, and you flopped on the bed and said, I just feel so useless. And I was like, oh my gosh, how can this be? It was from one softball team where you weren't getting much play time and you were always, relegated to the bench or various different things that were making you feel useless. And so, that's when we took a look at what you were involved in, and maybe it would make sense to make a change. I wouldn't recommend that, just because your child is unhappy that you make a change immediately. But we had already moved to a new area. We had kept you in the other softball team, to be there. But hey, we thought, why not? We're in a new area, so why don't we look at the softball teams here in our local neighborhood instead? And that ended up being one of the best things we ever did. And you had so much happiness there and camaraderie and friends, that lifetime friends that are still your friends now, and the group that went to the World Series. And it was a great experience for the whole family, actually. So, just to look at the situation and determine what the best next move might be. But I think as long as you're also being honest with your kids along the way about, their strengths and your love for them unconditionally, then you're setting up those values and their confidence from a young age. So that's the best advice I can give, really.
Yeah. I mean, going into the modeling industry, anyone who's ever been interested in doing that, I always tell them the two things you have to have no matter what are a good head on your shoulders and a good support system behind you. So I don't think I would have felt confident enough to go into something like modeling had I not had this support system behind me. So
yeah, you took a risk and
yes,
did
and
it.
I think that translates to even just like in sports or in music or whatever your kid decides to do. If your parents are supportive, encouraging, but also honest with your strengths and weaknesses and things like that, then you will be guided in the right direction.
Yes. And one of the things you said, though, was, parents putting their kids into something that they don't necessarily want to do. And when you were done with softball or volleyball, and we kind of thought you would go on to play in college, we accepted the fact that you said, actually, no, I'm ready to be done with this as a full-time gig and just play for fun and do something different with my life. And we were supportive of that.
Yeah. And I thank you for that. And we're going to get into the fact that I did not end up going to college and I did not end up playing sports shortly. But we're going to move into now the end of middle school into high school, where I guess I was the one who brought it up and said, I want to try this modeling thing. What are your thoughts as a mom? Your daughter's coming to you saying, I'm going to try this modeling thing. And what are your initial thoughts?
Well, it's just like when your kid comes to you and says, I want to try horseback riding or hiking or basketball or choir, you wanted to try modeling. So, okay, let's see what we can do. We have 4 kids and we have to balance our time between all 4. So that was always a thing too. So we weren't able to do everything under the sun with each kid because there's only so many hours in the day. But there was this little agency in our neighborhood. And so you and I went to visit there, and I had to wait in the waiting room, and you went in to talk to them by yourself. And I wasn't that impressed because they weren't getting you any jobs. And I thought you had a lot more potential than that and that you could do more. But I didn't really think about it much beyond that because you were managing it. You got your license. You would take yourself there, and there was a lot going on in our lives at that time. And so I let you just kind of manage that. Everything seemed to be going fine. I will say, if anything if they would have sent you on a shoot at something that I felt was very risky, I wouldn't have let you do it. Yeah. But it seemed to be fine.
Yeah. And I think while I was at that random small agency, I never did have my license because how I remember it happening is once I finally got my driver's license, then it was like, okay, well, now this is my thing. And I can go kind of drive and do basically whatever I wanted to, But then ultimately it's like I went and took myself to these things on my own. Right. So anyways, once I got my license is when I got signed with SMG in Seattle, which is still my mother agency today. Shout out. I've been signed with them for 11 years.
Yeah, and love them. I felt very trusting of them and handling your career.
Yeah. So once I went in for that first initial meeting, I came back and, well, let's talk about what I brought into that photo shoot. It was just some class photos from another student who took pictures of me.
In the red t-shirt, I remember.
They're like, I mean, they were pretty decent photos. We
Yeah,
were
they were
in
cute.
AP photography. So I come home from my initial meeting with SMG and I said, they want to meet me again. I think they want to sign me. Did you feel instantly a little bit more secure with that agency?
Yes. Yeah, they were a name agency. There are just a couple in town that have a great reputation, and they were one of them. I felt comfortable. I ended up meeting a few of the people, I think, along the way. As a parent, even if your kid's 17, 18 years old, there was still that interest in making sure, you were at a good place.
Yeah. So early on in your modeling career, as I've talked about a lot on my Instagram and TikTok, you do have to kind of put yourself out there, and you have to do a lot of what are called test shoots, which are unpaid shoots that you do basically just to develop your portfolio.
Yeah.
And back then, I feel like this is recent news to you, but back then I was meeting photographers on Facebook, meeting makeup artists on Facebook, and just going to their home address to shoot these photo shoots, which looking back, oh my God, I'm so blessed to have never run into a bad situation.
Right.
But as a parent, did you realize that I was doing that stuff, or did I keep it pretty quiet?
No, mostly I did realize that, but we had a very serious conversation about the safety of social media. Also, every time you went on one of those shoots, I think that at least 9 times out of 10, I knew that you were going, and I asked you to tell me where it is. I said something could happen. You never know. I need to know the address, where you're going to be, how long you're there. If there's any other information about these people that you can give me, please do. So I don't know if you remember all those details, but we did try to make sure. And even now, if any of the kids are living at home or India's staying with us for a week, we have everyone write things on the home calendar so we know where people are going to be. Please text us when you get in the door. Just that safety. Now, when you're not living with us, I don't have that, and I don't know what you're doing.
But back then, I do remember that. It's like, at least, even if you didn't have all the details, I didn't tell you what we were shooting or who the photographer was necessarily, but I would write down the address, I think,
right.
And I'm gone for 5 hours or
exactly.
whatever else. But yeah, there were definitely some risks I was taking early on, just connecting with people online, basically, as a 16-year-old. It's, again, like a blessing that I was okay.
The one where you went to the mountain and they were some of the most glorious photos, but you went to a snowy mountain with these people. And I was a little bit nervous that where you were going and how long you were going to be gone. And
which now that photographer is a great friend, but it's just so funny that I did meet her on Facebook, I think.
Yes.
Not through my agency or anything. That was just my own thing.
Right. And there were a couple of photographers that you started to see more often. So I started to know the names and feel kind of comfortable with that familiarity. Even though I didn't really know them, I just knew that they were trustworthy.
Yeah. So let's briefly talk about the safety online, because nowadays it's even worse than it was back then.
Yes.
Now we have Instagram and TikTok and all this other stuff, and kids, I can actually see the age of people who follow me on TikTok, and there's a category for under 13 years old. I'm like, oh my God. I think Instagram launched when I was maybe like a sophomore in high school or something like that. Maybe I'm mistaken. I was a slow burner on the social media game.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing. And nowadays people are getting on social media so much earlier, and it's a very unsafe place. Like, it just is. And I guess this is just a little PSA for parents to there's a balance between being a helicopter mom and hovering, and also making sure that your kids are making good decisions online, because it can be a very scary place.
It can be. And I was just listening to an article on the radio or a podcast the other day about all of it. And there's so much information available about the best things to do for your kids. So I'm not an expert in that area, but definitely to be cautious and monitor as much as you can and stay active in your kids' lives. This lady on the bus told me one time, I'm active in my kids' lives and I stay in their business so they don't get in trouble, and I always remembered that.
Yeah. So I'm 16, 17 years old, just starting to model with SMG, starting to do it more regularly. And you may have noticed that I got a lot of feedback about my body. That is what the modeling industry is. So how was it as a mom seeing your daughter kind of get this feedback at 16 years old? You shouldn't be worrying about how your body looks while it's still developing at 16 years old.
Honestly, I don't remember a ton of those things. I do remember you coming home and saying some of those things, the comments that you were getting. And we always praised you for your body. You're a very athletic build, and you were an athlete. So you were very fit at all times. I remember when someone asked you to please start toning down your muscles, which was a weird thing. I remember your coach just could not believe it. And we said, well, she's seeing this more as a career, and we still want her to be active in athletics. But I think you were doing it in a safe way, maybe just not overdoing it in the workouts and things like that. But I know you told me sometimes about, people saying you needed to lose 10 pounds, and we'd say, well, you really don't. I get it, though. This is the career that you've chosen, and how does that make you feel? And if you want to lose 10 pounds, how do you do it safely? And I really feel that you wouldn't have been anorexic under our care as parents.
Yeah.
So I did keep an eye on it. But I thought, again, you had a good head on your shoulders. And you had good body positivity even then. I know there were some times that I didn't know about that you got down on yourself about some of the comments you were getting, but I felt confident in your self-confidence.
Yeah. And I definitely did keep that a little bit more under wraps. So there was a significant point. I think I was trying to slim down for Singapore or something because they are very strict, or for Milan, whatever.
Yeah.
They're very strict with your measurements. And so I was like rapidly trying to lose weight, and I still ate, but it's like I would try to eat vegetables, like just very, very minimal calories and stuff like that. I do remember you always kind of said, all right, it's dinner time. Let's eat some dinner.
Yeah.
So as you said, I don't think I could have become unhealthy with you as my parent.
I hope that's the case. Yeah, that's how I felt. If I would have seen you getting to a place where you were looking unhealthy, acting unhealthy, I mean, I don't think you could have got away with that under our watch.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's true. But yeah, I guess I was a little bit more of an independent 16, 17-year-old than most are. So there was a lot of times where I was out working, whatever else. And yeah, it's like you were involved in my life, obviously, but I was also just out doing my own thing. So
yes.
What can you do, I guess, sometimes.
Right. Very much. I know. I don't know how to exactly get that across to people because, like I said, 4 kids, very busy. We had to trust that, you were living your life and going to activities and work appointments and things that made sense and that you were going to make good decisions.
Yeah. So how did you become okay as a parent with me skipping school to do like a Nordstrom shoot or a Union Bay shoot or whatever? There were only maybe
a few times.
10 times or something that I ever had to skip school for work.
Yeah.
But what were your initial thoughts on that? Were you excited and proud, or were you like, oh God, she's missing out on her education?
I know. It's funny you brought that up because I don't remember you skipping school exactly. But now that you mention it, I do kind of remember that you'd say, I have to miss my 3rd period. And we would always say the same thing to you. Just make sure you connect with your teacher. You know what the assignments are, that you're going to stay on top of school because that's the most important thing. If you can balance that and still go and have the modeling shoot, then that's fine. Yeah. And that you were setting yourself up for this new hobby, career, whatever it was going to be that you were interested in. And we were supportive of that.
Did you start to see that it could be a career when at 16 years old, I would go work for Nordstrom and bring home a $2,000 check for one day of work?
Yes, definitely. I was like, wow, I can't believe it. And then I would start getting pop-ups in my social media, seeing you in these Nordstrom t-shirts and things. I guess it's because I was looking at the pictures and that was the algorithm back then. But I was super proud of you working for the big names.
Yeah, the big names in Seattle.
Big names in Seattle.
Yes. Did you notice a lot of other parents and whatnot starting to ask about me being in modeling and maybe their interest in getting their kids started in modeling?
Mm-hmm. I mean, parents would ask me was I concerned? That was one of the things, other girls your age, their parents would say, don't you worry about her being involved in this industry? And we'd say, no, all the things we've talked about today. And then, a lot of parents will call me fairly regularly and say, would it be okay if we had some time with India to talk about modeling? My daughter's interested in it and we'd really like to chat with her. And then I, as a mom, would like to talk with you, Colleen, about what it's like to be the mother of a model. So that happens fairly regularly.
And what do you usually tell the parents when they ask, like, how can my daughter get started in modeling? What's your response?
Well, I do talk about the independence and starting with a small agency, or I do always kind of plug Seattle Models Guild because that's the one here that I know well and that was so good to you all those years. And then you've written a whole book about it. And so I've referred several people to take a look at that to get some real firsthand advice from you. And then sometimes you've been so kind as to take a call from somebody or spend a few minutes with them giving advice. And like I said, stay active in their business and they won't get into trouble.
Yeah. But I guess if they say, my daughter wants to start, well, yeah, you just refer them to my guide probably.
Yeah, because I don't know what it's like to be a model.
But then you say there's SMG and there's TCM and there's Hefner in Seattle. Like, you know the names of some of the big ones, so you probably suggest that they check those out.
Exactly.
So I guess little shout out if your daughter or you, if you're listening and you're young, are interested in getting into modeling. The secret is just to look up agencies in your area and go and visit them. So now moving on to when I graduated high school, and I mean, I'll let you take it away with the story of me almost going to college and then deciding not to.
That was the funniest thing because we went to an orientation for a university here in Washington, and I saw you walking with a group of girls ahead of me. I met actually a wonderful other mom who became a friend of mine, but I'd see you with the girls and you seemed to be, having a nice time with them. But I thought to myself, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't really see her making the connection here. There was just something, mother's intuition, maybe. And then I remember you saying to me, Mom, I don't know. I'm so conflicted. Conflicted? I said. Between what? You're going to college. You're going to major in communications, by the way, like me. And what are you conflicted about? And you said, well, rather than go to college, I'm thinking I might like to travel the world as a model. Okay, that is very different from what we've been talking about. I know you've dabbled in it a little, but I thought the plan was to go to college and maybe be an athlete in college. And I remember telling my boss, Rita, about it at the time, the owner of my company at the time. And I told her the whole story, and she said to me, well, you can't really say no, can you?
With college, at least my parents were going to help me out a bit with my college financially. And with this Greece thing, I was not needing any money. They paid for my flight, I think. They paid for my apartment. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I wasn't asking anything of you, you know what I mean? And so it was like, I think I'm going to do this. And hopefully I have your, stamp of approval, but I'm doing this type of thing.
Exactly.
I remember you did say, though, you said, ask your agency, see if they'll get you a contract somewhere. And if they're able to, then we'll have this conversation. You can't just not go to college if you don't have a backup plan.
You had to have a plan. And it had to be within this time frame because you had to commit to the university.
Within a week or something, I had to move out there.
A week or two, 10 days, I don't know. And so you said, I've got one. And all right, here we go.
And how I proposed it to my agency was I said, hey, I think that I'm going to be missing out on something if I don't try this modeling thing. I think I'll take a gap year maybe and just see how it goes. But I don't want to stay here in Seattle. I'm ready to do something bigger. So if you can find me a contract anywhere else in the world, I'm thinking like Los Angeles, New York, maybe Milan or something. If you can find me a contract, I'll do it. Yeah. And I'll leave this week. And it was so funny because I remember I got the phone call and they're like, we found you an agency and it's in Athens, Greece. And I was like, that's not a modeling capital of the world, but okay, sure, why not? And I thought that was going to be a good stepping stone for future modeling opportunities. Turns out it just kind of fueled my love for travel and made me want to do that several more times.
Remember the taxi driver? I don't think the economy in Greece was great at the time.
That was right before the big issues.
Yes.
Just prior to all the massive issues they had.
Yeah. And he said, "You're coming to Greece for a job?
For work?
For work?" Yeah. It was a different, kind of work. I think non-traditional that he wouldn't have put that together necessarily. But yeah. What were some of the jobs like that you did in Greece?
It's so funny. I did one Versace campaign.
Oh yeah.
And
Glasses.
it's like, no Versace client is going to be booking models out of Athens, Greece with 2 years of experience or whatever. It's like, absolutely not. They're booking Gigi Hadid and Kendall Kardashian, etc. They're not booking India Rando from Athens, Greece. So anyways, it's like these knockoff Versace glasses. And I booked like a lot of magazines for local magazines in Greece. I booked a lot of bridal shoots. I don't know why I always book bridal shoots.
Always a bride.
Yeah. And then I did have one major campaign in Athens that was in every mall, every store. And that was kind of my first experience seeing my face out and about in public. And it was that was actually a really cool experience, but it was just in little no-name Athens, Greece. It was like the Macy's of Greece, basically.
Okay.
A department store or whatever.
Athens, Greece isn't exactly a no-name.
Well, not a no-name for modeling.
Yeah,
It's not Milan.
exactly.
It's not Paris. It's not New York. You don't hear of a lot of supermodels being based out of Greece.
True.
So anyway, so you go to drop me off. You come with me. And I was living in what is called a model apartment. For those who don't know, basically your agency pays for an apartment for you up front. And then with each job that you book, you pay them back and essentially pay them rent from the jobs that you book.
Yeah.
So you walked into this model apartment and tell me your initial thoughts.
Oh, well, it was very sparse. It was cute. It was little. Even the refrigerator and the appliances were like little tiny things.
Yeah.
And there were 3 beds, and the one you had, the one was almost like a cot, and it was out like in the living room, partially.
In the kitchen, basically.
In the kitchen. And there were no drawers or hardly any place to hang your clothes. So it's like, well, let's go to Target. No, there isn't a Target there. Well, we found the equivalent of what would be a small Target and tried to find some hangers and a little plastic drawer set that you could put next to your bed for your personal belongings and things. It was a little nerve-wracking at first. I wasn't sure I was comfortable with this setup. But I stayed in town for a little while, let you get settled, helped you get settled a little, met the other girls, I think, and became a little bit more comfortable with it. At first I was comfortable with the fact that you were with an agency and that they had this model apartment and that's where you were going to live and that they were kind of overseeing it. So that would be fine. But pretty soon after you did it a few times in different countries and things, I realized that all of your pay was, not all, but a great percentage of your pay was going to pay for your rent. So it was sort of like they were getting you for free and letting you live in this tiny little apartment with a bunch of other girls sandwiched in there, which I didn't really like that concept.
We talked about the model apartment situation in the previous episode with Mario. And basically how it works is that apartment, that upstairs apartment, because there was an apartment below us as well with 5 more girls or something. But my upstairs unit had 3 girls. And that probably cost, I'm going to do US dollars. That's like an $1,100 a month apartment. I mean,
tops.
Tops. It's a 1-bedroom. I mean, styled horribly inside. It was very run down. It did have a massive balcony that looked at the water. So that's how it got to the $1,100 price. But it's a crappy apartment. Okay, so if it's an $1,100 apartment, just as an example, we probably were each paying the equivalent of $1,000. So all of a sudden, the agency receives $3,000. They only pay $1,100. And all of a sudden, they're making really good money off of bringing these girls to Greece to work.
And you can see that young women from America or different places around the world want to get into modeling. So they've got stars in their eyes and they'll do whatever, to get their feet wet. And in some ways I can see that you did get your feet wet, but what would we have done if we would have said, wow, this is not a good deal. Yeah. You don't have any money. It's all going into the apartment. How would we have done anything differently?
Yeah. I mean, you can't really, because the deal with the model apartments is it allows you to take that risk and move to Greece and try this, and they have them in New York, they have them in LA. So a lot of people from other countries too come to the US with hopes of making it big in New York City, but they pay $3,000 a month to their model apartment to share with 5 other girls. And the entire apartment only costs $4,000. So it's like these agencies really do make a lot of money off of it. And my perspective was, well, I just got to travel for free for 5 months.
Exactly. I felt that way too.
I came home with $500 extra in my hand of profit, and that was that. And I tell you, I made more than my 2 roommates did. They went home with nothing, or they lost money.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, for you, not for them. Yeah, I feel the same way. You weren't in college. I often say you went to the college of life. And you learned so many things, and you did it for about 3 years. So it was enough to be like a fire starter for your career. And just like you said, and you didn't go to college, but you learned so much, and this set you up for the career that you were aiming for. So, life and work experience in many cases is worth as much or more than college.
Wow, I can't believe you said that.
For some fields, I believe it's true. And I think you'll see that more and more today if you take a look at, what kids are doing with their lives. They're doing different things. I still think a college education of some sort is a good idea. I've often encouraged you to go and get a 2-year certificate of some kind. I think, a business background is good. But at the time, it was the right thing for where you were headed.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think my generation, or even younger, it's becoming just known that college is a great opportunity for a lot of different careers, but there are a lot of careers that require work experience or life experience that you can't get in school.
Right.
And for anything that I've been interested in, if you didn't know, I've done copywriting, social media management. I love doing hosting, things like this, appearances, social media modeling, whatever else. None of that you can learn in school. They might have a class or 2, but in my personal experience, getting real life experience with clients is more valuable. Yes.
But I will say, you had to have had a great high school experience to develop your writing the way you did, to be able to be a copywriter at that age, and your public speaking skills, different things that you did. Maybe some of that was due to sports, or I know you had some activities in high school that developed your leadership skills. So yes, in some ways you don't need further education in college for some of the things if you accomplished a lot and learned a lot with the education that you did have and the experiences in life that you had leading up to that.
Absolutely. And I think it takes a very specific type of individual. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying it is a very specific type of person to have the motivation and kind of resources to be able to learn everything you need to know for your career.
Self-driven.
I love a good YouTube video to teach me whatever I need to know. I looked up one because my sound wasn't working today or whatever.
A lot of people are doing that. Learning from YouTube.
So I will always say, when I have children, Happy Mother's Day. When I become a mother one day, I would totally encourage my kids to go to college until they can prove to me why they don't need to. So I don't know what you said that made me think of this, but in my modeling career in those early days, even now, let's be honest, it's very up and down.
Yes.
So I had a lot of random jobs to kind of fill in the gaps, especially in my early days, 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
So tell the people about some of my odd jobs and which one was your particular favorite that you always bring up and make fun of me for.
Oh, that must be the bridal shop. No, I love the bridal shop, but it's just so kind of not what I'm used to seeing. It was so cute though. You would come home in your little black suit that you put together from Goodwill, honestly, like you went and got like a blazer here and pants here and kind of put together this professional suit that you could wear to the bridal shop because you wanted to be around fashion and dressmaking and different things. So to be aware of that. And you'd come home with your little measuring tape around your neck. So that's what I tease you about, because it was really cute more than anything.
The job was David's bridal, by the way, just to clarify.
Yes.
And I was fitting women for their wedding dresses and helping them pick out their gowns.
It was a great job. Yeah. And then you did a radio station because you wanted to get more experience in the communications world, and you were doing promotions and talking. So see, these are the things, the experiences that you had that set you up for the career. What else did you do? Oh, well, you worked at a couple of bars because, everyone knows that starving artists and models and other people in the entertainment business often wait tables. And I actually think that's a good experience to get under your belt. I also worked at a fast food restaurant for a little while myself, just for one summer, because I thought that was a good life experience to have. It also helped me make money for college. You worked in a couple of different bars.
One piece of advice I'll give for starving artists who choose to work in bars and things like that is always keep your vision set on what your actual long-term goals are, because they call it the golden handcuffs for a reason. And I made dang good money working at those places.
Yeah.
Not so much at the gay bar, because most of them wanted to be served by a hot gay man in little booty shorts, which I am not. So I didn't make as good of tips at that one.
Yeah.
But the previous bar was like kind of a rock and roll grunge bar, and I made, to be honest, a lot of money doing that.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to give up on your other goals and just do that because it makes you quite a bit of money.
I will say some motherly advice. So one of the things that I think about a lot is that every experience you have in life builds you as a person, and exposes you to different things, different experiences in life. Also exposes you to different careers and how other people are making their living, and some are harder than others. And I just think it makes you the well-rounded person that you are by having these different life experiences. You know what? One of the things that tied in really well with your sports and your modeling was when you went on America's Next Top Model. And I'll never forget when you were there, you weren't allowed to say much of anything during the show, to give us any indication of how you were doing or anything like that. So we would just get a call now and then to make sure that you were okay and, having a good experience. And you said, it reminds me a bit about, a bit from my sports experience, and that I know how I could win this thing. I know the strategy behind it. And I think
Did I say that?
I might know what it takes to win this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was my hint to you. Let's talk about America's Next Top Model.
Okay.
So I've shocked you at a young age saying I want to become a model. And then I've said, I'm going to quit college and move to Greece.
Right.
And then I tell you, I'm going to go on reality television. What was your response to that one?
Well, I definitely thought you should. Because at that time you had come home and modeling, you took a pause because you were in one of the valleys. There's peaks and there's valleys in modeling, and you were in a valley. So you came home to kind of figure things out, get your finances in order. And that's when I think you just submitted a photo to America's Next Top Model. And they called you, this is my memory, is they called you and said, we'd really like you to come on the show. And you said, well, I need to talk to my parents about it. You weren't sure about the kind of contracts that they would be offering. So you thought, maybe I probably shouldn't really do this, but wow, it's great to have been asked. And so you came home and talked to us about it. And I thought, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So why not? I mean, you don't have a job right now. I don't think you had a job at the time. You were trying to figure things out. So I thought, well, this will take up how long? 6 months to a year of your life, and you'll never forget it. It's a life experience.
Yeah.
Go for it.
And it was only 6 weeks. So not that big of a risk.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It seemed a lot longer that you were gone.
Oh, it did. So I waited a really long time to tell you that I won. And just to clarify for everybody, reality TV isn't live. So we filmed the show. I knew that I had won America's Next Top Model. And the show was still not even going to start airing for another few months. Yeah. So I told my dad, I think, relatively soon after I came back, but I was very nervous to tell you because my mother is blessed with the gift of gab and sometimes can overshare. And I I would get in so much trouble if anyone had found out. I wasn't even allowed to tell my family.
Right.
But I thought I have to, so that we can kind of make plans for the next
Right.
step and stuff. So anyway, when I finally decided to tell you, Mom, your hunch is true. Yes, I want it. What was your reaction or initial thought then?
I think I was dancing around, super excited. I could hardly keep it to myself. Let's put it that way.
But did you tell anybody outside of our circle? I mean, I didn't
remember.
tell.
I
didn't
know
even
I
tell
wanted
my siblings.
Yeah.
It
No,
was
they
only
didn't know.
Parents.
Siblings didn't know. And we went to a watch party to watch the win. And the siblings didn't know. My cousin was there. She didn't know. Friends of the family didn't. No one knew. And we got there, and it was between you and one other beautiful woman. And you won, and we were just celebrating. There's a great video of us all dancing around, all wearing pink. We had T-shirts made, America's Next Top Model, and I think that was for the first show. And then we all wore this pink and black and had a big party for the watch show at the end. But you couldn't be there because you had to be in New York.
Yes. And that night, I turned my phone on silent. I was with Courtney from the show, and we were watching the finale together and having a glass of wine, watching the finale, and we both turned our phones off because we were like, this is going to be crazy.
Yes.
So on your end, were you also swarmed with tons of calls and texts and
Yes.
Facebook messages and whatever else?
Yes. I think I've saved several of those phone messages and texts, and everybody was going crazy and super excited for you. It was so neat as people said, I was cheering for India. I'm so happy that she won. And everyone felt like they knew you. They had a dog in the hunt, as they say, but they were really supportive of you and so happy for you.
I want to hear your thoughts on me receiving a $100,000 check. And what was your initial thought with that? Like, obviously that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I remember I bought those boots that I wanted for a really long time. I took you out to like this amazing restaurant that was uber expensive in my neighborhood in New York.
Right. Because you moved to New York. You took
Yes.
the $100,000 and moved to New York. That was going to be your next step, is modeling in New York. Yeah. And 100,000. I did say to you, I remember, I said, well, if you get an apartment and you are a model in New York for 1 year, and this 100,000, because that is a decent salary, this can support you for 1 year in New York, then that's a great life experience, and you'll always remember it, and you just need to have something that you can do following that.
We also expected that I was going to be making really good money after the show.
In New York, right.
That's what you think. You win America's Next Top Model, your career is set, you're good for
Right.
life. And I will say, from my perspective, it barely changed my modeling career. I had a few more magazine covers. I got a few more special interviews. I got maybe a few campaigns that I wouldn't have without the experience.
And a much bigger following on
Yes.
social media
That's
because
what I
of
was
that
gonna say.
exposure.
Okay. That's what I was going to say is barely helped my modeling career, but gave me the gift of 260,000 followers or something.
Right.
That is now a massive part of my career. So,
Yeah. So
grateful
that part.
for that. But we thought that I was going to be modeling in New York and like the next supermodel or whatever.
Right.
And New York was not my market, to say the least.
Yeah.
I think I worked like twice in the,
Surprising.
7 months or whatever that I was there.
Yeah.
So,
LA was much more your market, or
Yes.
is still
Yes.
much more your market.
exactly. So I have to end the episode with the question that I ask in every episode, but I'm going to ask it about myself.
Okay.
From
sounds
your
good.
perspective. What portion of my success in my modeling career do you think is attributed to my appearance, my luck along the way? Maybe winning America's Next Top Model was a little bit lucky. What portion do you attribute to luck, and what portion do you attribute to my hard work and dedication and drive?
Hard work, dedication, and drive, and you're smart, and your strategy.
Thank you. But what percent is the hard work and drive, and what percent is luck? I was born looking the way I look,
Right.
which is part of my career.
Yeah. No, I thought about this a little bit when I talked about the healthy, happy, and kind and smart, and that the beauty is just gravy on top of that. You were lucky to be born an attractive woman, And, but I think that, so much of it, I would say it's 80% the drive and confidence and strategy and kindness. And just think about all the wonderful things you did with the Camp Casey and the fashion show you did there. I mean, that was the kindness coming out in you. And the beauty, yes, does open some doors. I think that everyone can find their inner and outer beauty, though. And so 80-20 is what I'd say. Would you agree?
I actually haven't answered that question for myself on this podcast. Okay. Modeling is interesting because you don't have to be classically beautiful to be a model. You can be interesting looking. You can be weird looking. You can be tall and lanky. You can be, there are a lot of different types of models out there. Yeah. So I think if you want to do it, I'm not going to say everyone can have a successful career in modeling, but I will say that if you put your mind to it and you have confidence in yourself and you work hard and push yourself and network, you can be successful at modeling. So I guess, I might say 37, I might say 40, 60 being the hard work and drive, and 40% being the looks, because let's be honest, I go into a casting and half the time they don't care if I have a personality or I'm kind or I'm smart, and they book me because I look the way I do, or because I look like Gigi Hadid or whatever it is. And so, I might even do 60-40 in the other direction. I don't know. I am grateful for the way that I look, and I think that it's the reason that I get chosen for jobs. Right.
They're looking for a certain look a lot of times, and that's what you bring.
But I definitely worked hard, especially early in my career, and took a lot of risks and did a lot of things for free to develop my book early on. So
80%.
I'm going 60-40, 60 being the hard work and 40% being the looks. But anyway, thanks for bringing up the Camp Casey thing, by the way, because that's even more than America's Next Top Model or my travels or whatever else. That's my proudest achievement ever. And I'm
the work with those kids.
Yeah, I'm glad that you think that as well. Basically, after America's Next Top Model, I used to work with kids with physical disabilities for like 6 years. And so after America's Next Top Model, I threw a fashion show to benefit that camp that I worked at for the physically disabled children. And they actually walked in the fashion show with some America's Next Top Model contestants. So that was such a special opportunity.
And she called it Casey Catwalk.
Yes, the Casey Catwalk for Camp Casey. So thanks for bringing that up. Since this is a business-focused podcast, one thing I really wanted to talk to you about, Mom, is what it is like to be a mom who's also very successful in her career, in business. And it's not just like you are a working mom. You're also a very successful working mom. And my mom here became the president of her company and owner of her company. So she is excelling in her career while also being, in my opinion, the best mom ever. So I just want to know your advice for other moms who are still pursuing their career and going after their goals while also raising children.
Right. Well, thank you for that nice compliment. I will say, I've said before that being a working mom is one of the harder things in life, and when you focus on it and get into a routine, that's very important. Having a supportive spouse, also very important, or partner, someone to help you if you don't have a partner, a support system. Initially, as a working mom, that was one of the areas of criticism for me. People thought, how you're going to leave the raising of your children to other people, like if you had daycare or something. What people don't realize is that you look long and hard, again, for the right fit for someone to help you with the kids. We found a wonderful daycare that was near our home on the way to work with people that we trusted. We spent time there. We researched it. And then as our family began to grow, and when we found out we were having a third and fourth child, it was going to be easier and more economical for us to have a nanny to come into the house. So that was, again, part of the support system with help raising the kids, or And I was always worried if they were going to love the nanny more than me. And that was never the case. They really liked the nanny that we had. You all did. And I think also for your children to see you succeed in your career is wonderful. And it's a great role model for them to think about their own careers. And again, that routine is really important. There are some important events that you possibly miss. That is the most difficult thing. There was a time I was traveling and I had to miss your senior night of softball. And I felt maybe a little judged for that. And what I did is I made sure that you knew I felt it was a special day. I made you a special poster. I spent time with you. I went to so many of your games. That was one thing I tried to prioritize, is always getting to all the kids' activities. Again, you can't always get to everyone. You might be a little bit late. You might be dressed professionally, whereas everybody else is in their sweats and t-shirts or something. But you make it work. And on that senior night, I made sure my dad was there. I invited other relatives. So you had a great support system around you. I don't think you felt bad at all, or probably barely noticed that I wasn't there.
I didn't even remember that. I mean, it's so funny because you have talked a lot about the criticism that you've received from other parents, things like that. And I'm like, I didn't even notice a difference. I mean, I always had somebody around.
Right.
And then also, it's not like you were absent. I mean, for God's sake, I remember you being there at all of my games. So It's so weird to even think that you weren't. I mean, for the majority of the time, you were there.
Right.
But I guess you are just a wizard with balancing all of it, because I could see how people consider it a trade-off. You either work or you're involved in your kids' lives.
Right.
But in your case, you found a way to be, working and very successful at your work.
Right.
And then also a super involved parent.
Exactly. And I do want to recognize that there are moms out there and dads who are doing it alone, working and raising their kids as single parents, and don't have the support system that I was blessed to have. So again, I was very lucky. I worked to set that up, but some people aren't that fortunate. And it is hard. Being a working mom is hard. And props to all the working moms out there, because I know it's challenging and the most rewarding thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think seeing you be successful in your business has made me feel that I can pursue my own career and go at it full force and take risks. And I hope that, if and when I become a mom, that I'll also still be able to pursue the things that you are passionate about. I mean, that is kind of a crazy concept, that you have to just give up everything when you have children. You still want to prioritize them and make them a big part of your life, but you are still your own person.
Right.
And I think it is amazing that you have been able to continue to climb the ladder in your career while raising children, and I didn't even notice. You know what I'm saying?
One thing, thank you for that, but one thing I will say too is you prioritize your family, you prioritize work, and then most women put themselves, their own personal health, wellness, beauty, all those things third. And so there's a lot of working moms that I know that now that their kids are a little older are focusing a little bit more on themselves. If I could go back, maybe that might be one thing I would try to do differently. I enjoyed a lot of time on the bench watching softball games and baseball games. I think perhaps now I'd be walking around the field, getting my steps in, something like that, trying to also squeeze in some time for myself.
But yeah, not to mention, exactly, you're thinking about your kids, you're thinking about work, and then additionally, there's always yourself as well and your personal well-being. Right. And actually, we should do a couple questions from Instagram because I've forgotten to address the rest of them. But one of them from a family member of ours was, how do you manage to upkeep your own beauty and wellness while working, while raising kids, while doing all of it?
I mean, it is challenging. You just, like I said, at some point, you look in the mirror, is this how I want to look and feel? I want to look as good as I feel on the inside. And you have that moment where you say, gosh, I really need to take care of my own self, my health, my hair. I get up early. I do all the beauty routine in the morning, and then it carries me sometimes into the evening. I just want to be put together to start the day off, and then I don't have to worry about it at all.
And you always look very presentable on your calls. And when you go into work, you have a nice outfit, you have your hair done, you have your makeup done. I think that probably contributes to your mental health as well when you feel
it really
put together
does.
And everything like that.
It does, India. Yeah.
All right. We are going to rapid fire some Instagram questions. Are you ready, Mom?
Ready, Indy.
All right. What kind of modeling or clothes does your mother refuse or hate for me to do?
Well, yes, except everyone can remember that scene on America's Next Top Model when India said, "Mom, my mother would be horrified if she knew I was going to be modeling nude." And so I would have answered that. That was like the ultimate, but
So I've done the worst of it.
You handled it very well.
Fun fact, by the way, for everyone listening who doesn't know this, most of my family and friends know this, but during that nude shoot, we were broken up into 4 groups. The first group shot nude. Okay? They actually had to shoot nude. The second, third, and fourth group got little pasties for their boobs. They got little nude thongs for their bottoms. And so technically we were not shooting nude. We were nearly nude, but FYI, it wasn't a full nude. But anyways, is there anything else? I guess that's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, that was the ultimate, and you handled it well.
Yeah.
I knew you'd make good decisions.
Well, thanks, Mom. All right, next question. What is something that no one thought you could overcome, but you were able to?
Well, I was asked when I became pregnant for the 3rd time, and it was twins. Well, certainly you're not coming back to work. And it was a gentleman at work who asked me the question, and he also was having his 3rd pregnancy at home with his wife. And I said to him, "Are you coming back to work?" He was a vice president. Yes, of course, he was coming back to work, and I was coming back to work. I make a good living for our family, and it wasn't an option for me to stay home. And so, people said, 4 kids under the age of 5, how are you going to do this? And again, the routine and a support system around me and our whole family was essential for success.
And I think that's a great example, but I think also in your life, you have surprisingly been through a lot that nobody would see on the outside. And I think that you have addressed those within yourself, overcome them, and then still present yourself as this fully healed, expressive, outgoing person when, we all have our struggles, and you've had your fair share. And so I think just generally you've had to overcome a lot.
Yeah, I think about that a lot too. I don't want people to think that I'm fake and putting on this phony persona, but it's more about pull yourself up by your bootstraps and keep moving on. Give yourself time to grieve or feel the pain that you're going through, but then overcome it and keep moving onward with your life, in your career, in your family. Somebody told me one time that I was very resilient. There was a big mistake at work of some sort, and I always find a way to address it, solve the problem and move on. And I think I was doing it almost a little too fast for this one person. And he's like, "Well, I will say you're very resilient." And I think he expected me to wallow in my sorrows longer than I did, but I don't really have time for that. I want to take the time to address the challenge and the issue and the problem as much as it needs. And then I got to keep moving forward.
All right. Another question from Instagram. If you could go back in time to your younger self, what advice would you give?
If I could go back to my younger self and give myself some advice, I would stay more physically active while I was participating in my kids' activities and work and raising a family. It was very busy, but I wish I had carved out a little more time to stay on top of my own physical health. Another thing I wish I'd done, and I'm trying to be better at now, is to make doctors and dentist appointments. You always make sure to do it for your kids It's hard. That is hard to carve out time while you're working during the 9 to 5 hours to also call and make appointments. So first priority is your kids, and then you got to make those for yourself. And any friend of mine would say that that's probably the one thing I've been pretty poor at for my own self. And I
doing
really,
your own checkups and
correct.
Your own appointments.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And even along the lines of more the beauty side is like, don't forget your hair appointments or your teeth whitening or whatever else you do. And I know you just got your eyebrows done. They look lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
We actually answered most every question already in the podcast. So we'll just end it with this. Your favorite coffee place in Seattle, and be honest.
I do go to Starbucks.
Yes, we love it. It's a local coffee shop.
Right.
In Seattle.
For us, that's a local coffee shop. I love the mobile order, but I do always make sure to say hello to the staff when I come in because I hate to just run in, grab my coffee, and leave. But I do like to pre-order, and it's ready there for you.
Let's say your order at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Double tall, skinny vanilla latte with almond milk. Oh, I said oat milk. Almond. Okay. Anyways, thank you for being on. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Thank you for being the best mom ever, in my humble opinion.
You're welcome.
Happy Mother's Day. Bye, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day.